Welcome to the 28th episode of the Illegal Handsets to the Face Football Podcast. How you doing, Jake?
Doing great, Hayden. How are you?
Tremendous. Guess who's back? He's back.
Oh my God.
He's back. Not actually, because, it's just expected to sign, but, yeah. Tim Tebow. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it, and I was like, hey, hang on a second. Wait. I was like, 33-year-old tight end, that's kind of ridiculous. And then I'm like, Jared Cook's like 35, 36. Like, he could have some gas in the tank.
Yeah. How old's Gronk? He's got to be up there too. So, is Tebow going to put himself in the ranks with the top tight ends in the league?
I think Tebow's either the same age as Gronk or a little older, actually. So, I don't know. I don't think he'll be elite, but I'm kind of more excited for the idea that, like, on the goal line, they may actually, like, snap the ball to him once. That's what I'm really looking forward to. I don't really care if he catches any passes or not.
Yeah, everyone's concerned about him making the team or not, and everyone's forgetting there's preseason this season, so we're going to see him play tight end.
Yes.
No matter what happens, if he doesn't make the roster or what, he's going to get snaps at tight end.
Man, if they like, this is the year that I'm most excited for preseason. If we don't get preseason football, I'm gonna be like so upset. You ready to talk about the Atlanta Falcons?
Oh yeah, I'm ready to talk about the Falcons.
You want me to get started?
Yeah, why don't you start us off here?
Okay. So, the opening play of the season, nobody decided to block Takk McKinley, and he got a free sack, first play of the season. That was kind of funny, just because it was like they really didn't come by sacks too easily. Even though they seemed like they were getting a fairly decent amount of pressure all year, that really wasn't something that was going too well for them. So it was funny that the first play of the season, Seattle just gave him a free sack. Calvin Ridley plays bigger than he looks. Like, he's decently tall, but he's not like a thick player, and he usually takes hits pretty well and does basically everything at a pretty high level. D-line looks good against Seattle. I don't know if that's saying much. And realistically, I actually, once I got through all four of the games that I watched for them, I was like, yeah, their defensive line actually looked pretty good, which is weird because then you look at the stats and they don't look too great. That may have probably had more to do with like the secondary and the linebackers coverage down the field, I guess. Just because it was probably easy to hit passes. I mean, it didn't feel much like anybody in the secondary was really making any plays except for Keanu Neal and A.J. Terrell. A.J. Terrell played really well, like, the whole season. They drew up a great fake punt against the Seahawks, got the first down, and then fumbled. That is awful. That just feels so terrible. Shaquille Griffin absolutely lit up Julio Jones on a play, and he just, like, ate the hit and, like, kept running, and it was like, oh, man, he still got it. I really don't think that they should trade him. I don't know why they would. I don't know why they would want to. It feels like they're too talented to do that. Todd Gurley felt like he did nothing more than whatever the offensive line gained him. Like, in the 4 games I watched, I really don't think he broke a single tackle in front of me. There's no doubt that last season this team's passing game was significantly better than its running game, but once they finally kind of got away from Todd Gurley, the running game got better. Olamide Zaccheaus is my favorite name in the entire league, and I will be rooting for him every week no matter what, and that's what I was crying about a little while ago. I saw that he's injured right now, and that's sad. I don't like that. Younghoe Koo is that guy. Like, very good kicker. They don't have anything to worry about in the kicker department. And then, like, one time, like, it really felt like they needed him against the Chiefs. I swear the ball, like, just, like, went into a world of its own. Like, not even how he kicked it, but it's just like, freaking sidewinded itself sideways. It was wild. I couldn't believe how that kick came off his foot. It was so weird. It looked clean. Well, actually, it looked clean when it came off, and then it got, like, halfway to the uprights, and it just... Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean a lot of the notes I really have are pretty similar for the rest of the season. Matt Ryan maneuvers the pocket well. AJ Terrell shut down like Denver on 3 plays in a row. Also watched the Denver game, and they went at him 3 times like inside the 30-yard line, not inside the red zone quite, but they were throwing at him, and he was just shutting down the Denver receivers, really playing well. The depth at the receiver position actually looks really good on this team. Matt Ryan scrambled once, and I just put hard eyes because, there's nothing like watching a nice pocket passer get out in the open field and rush for 10 yards. Really a lot of the same stuff over and over again. It sucks that they're losing Keanu Neal, honestly, because he was a huge player in the safety, just for their defense in general. But actually, I think they really addressed the safety position really well in the offseason. And I mean, there's a lot of just notes I took on players like Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, like, I was really surprised, like, looking back. I just forget how good he is. Like, I don't give him enough credit for what he does. Deion Jones is insanely fast for his position. It's unbelievable. They had some good plays last season, like play design wise, but I mean that doesn't really matter because they're going to be getting a new offense. So I don't know. Maybe they'll have Matt Ryan like talk to the new coaches about some of them, but I mean probably not the ones I'm talking about specifically. It'll basically be a new offense. Linebacker named Reynolds was kind of interesting. He was making plays every once in a while, but they let him go, so he's not really a big deal anymore. Ito Smith and Brian Hill really helped the run game once they actually took Todd Gurley out. And then basically, I think the only thing I have left that I didn't reiterate over and over again is that Grady Jarrett goes to work up front. He is an absolute animal. He is a great player. And just once again, I mean, like a lot of games that the Falcons play, it just felt like it's rough some of the end of those games. It's very tough, and especially the Chiefs game. Like, geez, I can't imagine being a Falcons fan and having to deal with that stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all my notes. Tried to get through them pretty quickly today. So yeah.
Everything that I wrote when I watched my four, basically the same thing that you have. AJ Terrell and Grady Jarrett are the two stars of that defense. Now, well, definitely now that Keanu Neal is gone, and it's hard when you just have a defensive lineman and a corner as the only two guys that are like studs on your team.
Yeah.
And no one else. Like the Rams, yeah, they have a stud on D-line and corner, but they have a supporting cast around them. The Falcons, it's just you're shaking your head.
The inside linebackers, actually two of them, they were kind of better than just like the standard issue player on the defense. Jarrett and Terrell are the two like insane guys, but the two inside linebackers also deserve a little bit of credit.
Mm-hmm. But just watching that defense is pitiful at times. Just seeing the plays that they let up consistently, letting games go by. I mean, it's nothing that hasn't been said before, and it's just like kicking Falcons fans when they're down, having to go over and over and say all this stuff about them blowing games.
What 4 games did you check out?
The Cowboys game. I saw the Seattle game. I also watched the Broncos game, and I watched like a game. Oh, I watched the Chiefs game. That was the other one.
Okay.
So
You're
pretty similar game.
Pretty similar to the ones I saw. I think I actually picked like. I'm pretty sure I watched like 4, not besides the Seattle game. The 3 other games I watched were like their most impressive defensive performances, which once I was done watching them, I was like, that probably wasn't the best like example because I know this defense has been like atrocious in other games, and I should have seen that. And I mean, that was definitely the idea, but like they only allowed the Raiders to score like 6 points, I think, which like that was one of the games I watched as well. So it was like, sometimes they can get things going. It's very hit or miss with them. It almost feels like on how they're going to perform on a week to week basis. But I mean, obviously with what their record was last year, it was usually showing up in the worst light. But I mean, even then, sometimes they would get to games and. I mean, they would be right down to the wire. Their defense wouldn't play that poorly or whatever it was. They'd just be close in the end, and they wouldn't be able to swing out the victory, pull it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And the defense struggled, but when you have a struggling defense like that, you need to provide like their offense is great, especially with guys they've added now. It's star-studded, but there were just times where it looked like their offense wasn't producing to the caliber they could. I know the second Bucks game, that was just like a shootout the whole game. But I mean, when you have Todd Gurley, the oldest 26-year-old in the NFL, and you're giving him like teens worth of carries in games, it's going to be tough for you to pull a win out.
Yes, this team will be significantly better running the ball, I feel, with a slightly new run scheme. Man, I'm trying to figure. I don't know how Tennessee's coordinator, correct? O
Yeah,
coordinator.
yeah,
I
Arthur
don't
Smith.
I don't know how I don't know if he'll like run the same type of. I mean, we'll have similar play designs, but I'm just wondering like differences in run play styles, and then also like how often he chooses to run the ball. Because when you have Derrick Henry, it's like, okay, we got to run the ball a significant amount. But even then, like I just don't know. I'm interested to see how it changes,
Hmm.
moving to Atlanta. But I think there's other things that won't change a lot, which I kind of will talk about later. It'll definitely be interesting to see how he utilizes all his weapons, though, because that run game was kind of the thing that was holding them back last season, and I feel like they addressed that pretty well this offseason.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely did. And my final two notes that I just have from what I saw, again, piggybacking on what you said about Young Hoku, they don't have to worry that much about their kicking or punting department really. But special teams as a whole, they kind of have to worry about that because their main returner left in free agency, and he wasn't that good to begin
Yeah,
with.
I was gonna say that he wasn't. He wasn't. That's exactly what I was gonna say. He wasn't that good. I think.
So,
I think they found. I think they've got something up their sleeve though that maybe you did or didn't take note of.
okay.
Yeah, I'll mention that later.
All right.
For some stats that I just want to mention, I mean, Matt Ryan easily 4,500 yards, like cake work for him. Todd Gurley only 3.5 yards per carry, and then Brian Hill 4.7, Ito Smith 4.3. I mean, it's right there. That's a huge stat. It's not like I don't know how people can't take that more seriously. Like there's multiple teams doing this, and I feel like the worst teams are the ones who have the guys with the lowest yards per carry as their starting running backs. The Falcons were a bad team. They had Todd Gurley as their starting running back. The Jets were a bad team. Frank Gore was their starting running back. This is like a huge hindrance. I don't know how these guys can get paid to make decisions about a depth chart and go, oh yeah, Frank Gore, you're staying in the game, or oh yeah, Todd Gurley, you're staying in the game. If I'm the coach, I'm not the general manager anyways. I didn't sign the contract. So even if he's getting paid $20 million a season to be on the team and play running back, which no one is, but even if that was the case, if the other guy's producing better, why the heck would I put the guy who's doing worse in the game? It doesn't make sense. There's some sort of ego element to it that people need to get past because it's just stupid.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
I like I said before, I really don't think this team could give up Julio. It's just the depth is fine that they would be fine if they gave him up, but I don't want them to. They don't need to. I mean, I don't see the advantage in giving up Julio, especially because I don't think they're that bad. A lot of these teams that are like really at the bottom of the draft are bad teams. I don't think the Falcons are a really bad team.
No,
Uh,
no, they're one third of football poor. Like their offense and special teams is okay. Their offense is great. Special teams is okay, and then their defense is just poor, and they
yeah,
need to upgrade their defense. Their defense needs to produce more, and you don't change that by releasing Julio. So
or
it
trading him,
wouldn't.
either
Yeah,
or.
or trading him for a draft pick that you might spend on an offensive player if that pick's at the top of the draft.
Yeah, no. Um, Yeah, I said Young Hoku, once again, his statistics, like he's hitting like a really high percentage of his field goals and his extra points. His field goal percentage was actually higher than his extra point percentage because he missed 3 of each and he had more field goal attempts than than extra point attempts, which was kind of sad. But yeah. Then for some defensive stats, A.J. Terrell, 7 passes defended. Deion Jones, 6 passes defended. And then this guy is the other middle linebacker I'm talking about. Didn't show up on tape at all, watching it. But at the same time, you look at his stats at the end of the season, it's like, holy crap, he produced. Foyesade Aloakon. Can you say that name?
Foyesade Aloakon?
Oh, you're much smoother than I am. 4 forced fumbles, and he just had solid stats, a lot of across the board, really. I mean, even his he had 100+ tackles this season. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, no. Him, Deion Jones, and Keanu Neal were the 3 guys on the defense that had 100+ tackles. And I think he may have actually led. I don't have that written down because I just gave them as a general group there. But yeah, no, he produced in that category and just a bunch of other categories. He was a high ranker in forced fumbles. I think he had some interceptions, tackles for loss. He was kind of doing decent around the board. And then they didn't get a lot of sacks, but I swear the pressure was there in the games I watched. I don't know if it was the offensive lines they were going against, but man, one of the games was against the Raiders, and I feel like the Raiders' offensive line was plenty good last season, and it still felt like they were getting solid pressure. So I don't know. The other 3 teams they played, though, kind of actually considered fairly bad offensive lines. So that because it was Seattle, Denver, and Kansas City. So I mean, those aren't considered great. So that may have been an issue. And I mean, plus when you look at the stats, it's really not like the D-line was creating that much. So that's probably kind of an issue they need to figure out. But I mean, it feels like a lot of teams are not strong at the defensive line position.
Yeah.
Just in general. Then last 2 stats. Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, and Grady Jarrett all had 8+ TFLs. Keanu Neal had 9 tackles for a loss at safety position. That's freaking insane. And Grady Jarrett, just because no one else on the team was even close to him on this, he had 21 quarterback hits. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
Free agency and trades. They had 1 huge trade.
Oh, yeah, the biggest trade of the offseason. Shakes the NFL landscape for ages.
Yeah, here, lead us into these, boys.
Well, let's just get this trade out of the way. The Stafford trade to the Rams might have been the biggest in equity, The Lee Smith trade to the Falcons is the biggest in magnitude by the size of Lee Smith going there. Arthur Smith did a lot with Jonnu Smith in Tennessee, and I can see Lee Smith filling that Jonnu Smith role now for the Falcons.
Yeah, definitely not. Lee Smith they actually traded for Lee Smith thinking that he was a offensive tackle that they could use as an eligible tight end every once in a while, eligible tackle. And then they realized, oh shoot, he's actually a tight end because, down in Tennessee, I think Tennessee actually in the past few seasons has had 2 or 3 touchdown passes to tackles. That's why I say that. So, I don't know. I have no idea why they felt the need to acquire him. Because honestly, they actually not only did they I don't know how much of a player he really is significantly to any sort of team, but on top of that, it's also they had 5 tight ends on roster already, and then with where they were sitting in the draft, they had to kind of know that they were going to be able to get Kyle Pitts too. So it was what's going on here?
Yeah, Arthur Smith just really wants to do a lot with that leak out game with Lee Smith. He just scamper off the sideline. No one's gonna cover you.
We're just gonna keep having a quad set right and Lee Smith to the left, and we're gonna drop back. We're gonna have a sprint out right to the quad side, and we're just gonna delay it so long. Wait until we're sacked, and then right when we're about to get sacked, we're just gonna leak it back out opposite side to Lee Smith.
Yeah. But that tackle eligible thing that you said, they must have thought he wore 58 or something and not 85.
I would not give up a draft pick for him. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's
that feels more like a baseball.
Depending on if he makes the roster, though, isn't it? It's like a conditional 7th. So
I don't know, but it's like it's like no, it's basically like a baseball trade. It's like yeah, we'll like the old school baseball trades where it's like yeah, we'll just give you cash to take the player from you. it's like yeah, we didn't really want him anyways. You can have him.
yeah. But that's enough Lee Smith. That was like 5 minutes of Lee Smith there.
I'm sure it's great. Where else could you get this content?
Well, we're the resident Lee Smith experts, so probably nowhere else.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, the rest of their free agent signings, I mean, like I said, special teams was poor for them. So I think their biggest signing that they had was Cordero Patterson, next to Mike Davis probably as their two bigger signings of the offseason. Cordero's going to bring something whole new to that offense. That receiving room is stacked. Well, they could have him at running back too, but that offense with him there is just crazy.
I think they're signing him as a running back, and actually, he's not even the guy I was talking about in the return game. I think he could
really?
I think he could actually be more significant for them in the actually as like a third down running back type receiving type back. Mike Davis did that well, but I think that with how well Mike Davis, the one guy that I really thought was gonna, this was like the only free agent signing that I got 100% right and felt like I was gonna get 100% right. So I'm happy about the Mike Davis one. But I mean, Mike Davis did the receiving game well, but I kind of feel like Cordero Patterson will be a really good change of pace back for him. Not even because he's that much different of a player. He's still going to have the same style. But just because you need a breather every once in a while. And really, the game won't change too much no matter which one of them's in the game. I don't know if that means that Brian Hill and Ito Smith are completely phased out of the offense. But actually, now that I say that, Todd Gurley's gone and Brian Hill actually signed with another team. I forgot to look at that beforehand. So, yeah, it's really just Ito Smith left. So, I mean, I feel like those two will actually be used significantly at the running back position, Davis being the starter and then Patterson being the sub-in guy. But Patterson's getting a little older, so maybe they don't put him in the return game as much. They may. I mean, it'll be a battle between him and this one other guy that I have to mention when we get to the draft.
Okay. Just wrapping up the rest of their notable free agent signings that I had, they get Deron Harmon from Detroit. They needed to do something for that safety position because 3 of them left in the offseason, so they need to get something there to fill in. And they get another safety too because the other notable guy that I had is your guy, Eric Harris.
Yeah. Terrible in Madden, but like IRL really like Eric Harris. It's so annoying. I'm trying to live my dreams out, and I can't even use one of my favorite players because he's trash in Madden. But safeties. In regards to safeties, Eric Harris really like his overall play style, everything he brings to the table. So I love that signing. Duron Harmon, honestly, he's just I swear he's one of the luckiest guys in NFL history. Just ball like straight bounce up, like somebody's gonna swat a pass up and it's guaranteed to fall directly into Deron Harmon's arms every single time that the ball goes up in the air. So, I mean, just remembering that he's the luckiest man in NFL history, it's always a good thing to have a lucky guy on your roster. So, I mean, like I said, though, there's something to be said about guys that force turnovers, and turnovers are huge. So, I like signing a guy that forces a lot of turnovers. Mingo was interesting to me, but I don't know how much of a role he'll have. I mean, he's been such a weird guy around the league. Like, I've always known about him, but I can't actually ever remember him doing much of anything anywhere he was. And then the other two guys that I have signing that are kind of important just because I think Matt Schaub was their backup last season, and I think he finally retired, like just finally. So they bring in AJ McCarron to be backup, and Fabian Moreau at corner. He's not a very well-known name, but I mean, after AJ Terrell, the corner position is so weak that I feel like any cornerback is kind of noteworthy to this team.
Going over the guys that left, I mean, all their safeties, Keanu Neal, Ricardo Allen, DeMonte Casey, that position just got ravaged in the offseason. Like it's paper thin. Same with their whole secondary is very thin. Alex Mack left, so their best offensive lineman goes to the 49ers. They addressed that in the draft, so good on them for actually noticing a need and filling it, unlike the Texans. And then their main returner last season, Brandon Powell, signed with the Bills, and those were kind of the notable guys that I saw that left. Alex Mack is a really big hit for them because they're going to have like a rookie fill in for him, and just with how dominant he has been his whole career, it would be tough, especially all these deep threat guys that are on the roster now. Matt Ryan have to sit back and develop. Like that offensive line is not great as it is, so losing the cornerstone of it is tough. And then Keanu Neal, just he's so good. He's so underrated too. It's just injuries really kill him. So he decided to go be a linebacker in Dallas now.
So weird. The Leroy Reynolds guy, who's kind of an interesting player, he left, so I just wrote that because he was kind of making some plays, but he was also kind of like screwing up a lot, so I guess they kind of got rid of a liability. That's not necessarily too bad. Also, Ray Wilson and Darqueze Dennard, who played significant snaps for them at the cornerback position, aren't signed back yet, and I don't think they will be, so... but like I said, it's not really. It's not like they were playing too well, so it's not like those are huge losses. And then Laquan Treadwell is unsigned, and it's just funny. I remember him coming into the draft like he felt like a pretty decent talent, and now he's off of his second team. And honestly, I don't know if there's much of a market for him to even get signed by a third team. It's just funny going through these teams, guys you see that are just completely unsigned still, and it's like, wow, he's really going to be out of the league already, and I don't know about Treadwell, but he's not on a team right now, and it's not looking too great for him.
Yeah, I can't really see a team taking a flyer on a guy that's going to be going into like his 5th or 6th year and has shown that he's not that productive and doesn't have a lot of athleticism to his skill set anymore. He's a good route runner, but it's just like that can only take you so far, especially when you can't create your own separation or catch consistently, because that was a big problem that he had.
Yeah.
But Bleedy Ray Wilson, I loved when I saw him come up on tape. I didn't realize like how old he was, and then I looked up his name. I was like, geez, he has been in the league for a while.
I love every time I type his name in on something and it autocorrects it to blinding. Something like Blitty. It's like just my phone hates names. Most of the names get autocorrected to something weird, but Blitty goes to blinding.
Yeah. Looking at the list of unsigned guys I have left, one other notable guy, Darqueze Dennard, just keeping that secondary thin, not bringing back a lot of guys, but I mean their whole system is going to be changed, offense and defense, with guys that Arthur Smith brings in. So it doesn't really matter with continuity of old guys.
How is Darqueze Dennard 30 years old?
It doesn't seem possible. Like when I saw that was his age, I was just shaking my head. I'm like, geez, dude, I'm getting old.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make like any sense at all. So are you ready to talk about their draft a little bit?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
So they were interesting. They didn't always necessarily go for positional needs, I would say. But when they didn't go for positional needs, they did go for positional needs most of the time, which was good. But when they didn't go for positional needs, it was like for good reason, I would say. Mm-hmm. So I generally like what they did. I'll run through what I have to say about their draft first, and I guess then you can just go after, and we'll just that way we're not just swapping back and forth between every guy. Kyle Pitts, I don't think this was a hard pick, not necessarily a needed pick because they have Hayden Hurst, and I feel like he was pretty decent. But I mean, he's such a great pick, and in this new offense, this is one of the things that I will say I'm guessing will come back from Tennessee to Atlanta. I'm guessing they'll have a very successful screen system, and Kyle Pitts could have 800 yards receiving next season off screen plays alone. Richie Grant was a very good player that I liked a lot. He's an awesome replacement for Keanu Neal, and I think that he'll basically be perfect to fill in that Keanu Neal role. Honestly, he feels like almost exactly like the same type of player. Jaylen Mayfield, not another guy that I wouldn't necessarily say is a terrible need at tackle for them, but I saw some people saying that Mayfield should go in the first round. Not me. I wouldn't have taken him that high. But I mean, geez, when there's other people saying that he could be a first round talent and he's still available like late in the third round, I think that was definitely a good pick just to make based off what you could get from that. Darren Hall is a corner. They really need some guy besides AJ Terrell, so I'm not going to say anything is wrong with them taking a corner because they need someone to play the opposite corner position well besides AJ Terrell. He's a strong tackler and he's a playmaker, which playmaker portion is the thing I like. I don't love the tackling corner thing necessarily because I don't value that too much, but yeah. Then Drew Dalman, Alex Max leaves, so they add a new guy at center. That makes sense to me. Taquan Graham feels like a pretty average DL. I mean, I like that they took this guy because, like I said, D line production wasn't necessarily a strong suit for them, but I wasn't too excited by him. The next guy they took, Adetokunbo Ogundeji. I think I did that one decently. He's similar positionally, as in he's still on the D line as Graham, but I actually like him more than Graham. Then they pick a corner named Avery Williams. He's a cornerback, but everything I saw about him was that he's a great return man, and that is the guy that I really think could actually, even though Cordell Patterson has been so successful in the return game, could threaten him, could actually steal a job from him, returning kicks for them. And that's no matter which one they end up going with as their returner, it's going to be a significant upgrade from last season's return game. But this guy was really good in college. He returned, I think 4 or 5 kicks or punts for touchdowns. And also, on top of that, there's a huge thing about if you return a kick or a punt in college for a touchdown. If you return anything for a touchdown in college football, you're significantly more likely to be successful in the NFL, which is kind of stupid, but it's proven statistically so. And then their last pick is a guy named Frank Darby. He has this great ball adjustment. He's a deep ball threat, mostly because of his size. This is the only pick that I really have to say, I don't get it. You don't need a receiver, Atlanta. He seems like a good player, but I mean, I bet there's other guys that I could have said seem like good players in the 7th round and didn't really need him. And then I was not going to do this. This was just ridiculous. The Falcons signed 19 undrafted free agents from what I saw. I don't know if I was looking at some fake list or something, but there were 19 names that it said the Falcons had signed 19 undrafted free agents. I wasn't going to go through all of them. The only name on the list I'll point out is Felipe Franks because I think we talked about him a little bit, and maybe he gets a fun package just because I love the idea of having backup quarterbacks get in the game so much, just like we mentioned with Tebow earlier, even though he's a tight end.
Yeah, I saw that list too. I was a little bit shocked when you said because I didn't think it was. I didn't realize it was 19. When I saw the list, it was 10, and I was still like, I am not watching 10 guys. I saw Felipe Franks. I was like, oh, good for Felipe Franks. But I didn't realize it was 19.
Yeah, I mean, if you were looking at an article, I mean, I may have an article that just came out today or something, so it's the full list now. You may have looked at an article that's a few days old or something. Yeah, no, it's just ridiculous how many guys they've signed. So, sorry if any of those guys turned into superstars. I'm sorry that we didn't mention them in advance of them becoming superstars. But at the same time, I'm guessing at least 18 of them will not be known very long at all. Or at least 17.
This is just motivation for them now. They're all going to see this.
The other thing, though, is that I really do applaud the Falcons for signing that many guys and actually bringing them in and seeing if they're good. Because I think there's a huge... I think you should bring in a ton of undrafted guys and see how many are actually good that you just didn't take note of before. I think it's a really good idea. You could find some hidden gems. I don't think there's ever anything wrong with doing that.
No, especially if it's going to create a lot of competition too. Because the list that I saw, even though it was half of it, I saw that there was a decent amount of secondary guys too, and you just want to keep creating competition amongst that unit with how weak it is.
Yeah.
Because if you can strike gold on one of them,
Not
it's the smartest move that you've made.
The thing is it's not secondary though, because actually I think their safety position got upgraded. It's just corner. The corners are just bad.
Yes. Going through their draft,
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts was the consensus consensus one and two for us with
He's
talent
like the
wise.
consensus number one skill position player.
Yeah, just overall talent wise, no matter the position, one or two for us because JOK was up there too. I feel like I have to find a way to shoehorn JOK into every single one, because I feel disrespected that he was disrespected with how he fell in the draft.
Gosh, I just get so frustrated seeing. I know that the Browns are only recently being successful, but just look at their roster, how much talent they already have on their roster. Only looking at it in terms of modern day. I mean, really in terms of like the last 60 years, they did deserve to finally have some success. But why the heck did the Browns need to be the team that got him? Like, I mean, if they picked him in the first round, it would be different. But he was their second round pick. Like, come on, man. Come on, NFL. Don't let the rich get richer. And that's not even the league. That's other teams being stupid. Stop being dumb.
Mm-hmm. I understand he had the heart problems, but I mean, come on. Someone's got to pull the trigger sooner than that on it. But yeah, Kyle Pitts was like up there, number one skill position player. Dude is just so talented. That receiving, like the whole receiving group that Matt Ryan's going to have is insane. He should throw for 6,000 yards next season and still not make the playoffs, but
I don't know about that. They could.
Missed the playoffs?
No, they could make it.
Oh. In the second round, Richie Grant, he was my fourth safety. Was really impressed with what he did. He makes a lot of plays. I mean, the most notable play when you look at his highlight reel is he's on the opposite side of the field and just runs over and makes a pick because he can just read the quarterback's eyes from like 50 yards downfield, and it's an amazing interception. So him going in there replacing Keanu Neal, and all the he's not replacing all the other guys, but just getting some fresh blood in there, some fresh talented blood is great. Jalen Mayfield, I know they primarily tackle, but I could see Atlanta kicking him in because their interior is weak. The interior of that offensive line is fairly weak. So if they kick him in, or kick one of the tackles that they already have in, see what they could do. Because I do like Jaylen Mayfield. He's really talented. I think he was like my third, not third overall lineman, but third or fourth for the position.
Yeah.
Darren Hall, from San Diego State. Was not really impressed with him, but they just need to get more guys in there to play corner. So I can't hate the pick. If they think he was the best available then sure, pull the trigger, get him in. Drew Dahlman, center out of Stanford. Yeah, you need to replace Alex Mack, so get your guy there in the fourth. Taquan Graham, he like you said, was not impressed with what he said or what I saw. But you need to get something in there on the interior. I did Adeto Kumbo Ogundechi.
I did that one better than you. You usually do better than me, but I did that one better.
I was practicing for that one to get it right too. But out of Notre Dame, he was more impressive than Taquan Graham from what I saw. So they might have, yeah. And then Avery Williams, you said too that you didn't see much from him. That wasn't just special teams or great stuff about him on special teams, and I saw that too. The one highlight reel that I did see of him was vertical, so it was like an Instagram post or something that someone put on YouTube, and it was like shaking and everything, and there was filters on it, so it was really hard to watch, but I watched it. It was like a minute long. It actually had defensive plays on it, and I did like what I saw. He's athletic, makes plays. And then Frank Darby, I don't really get the pick. Your receiving core is one of the deepest, like, in your division at the least. And you're bringing in another guy. I do like what I saw from Frank Darby. He's a big body that outmuscles guys, but it's just, you have Julio. You have
every
Julio to do that.
NFL general manager, every single one except for the Packers GM, is like, we can't leave the draft without a receiver. We can't
need to
do
get
it.
more weapons for our quarterback.
It's insane. I don't know what the heck that's about, but yeah, they just don't want to leave without a receiver for whatever reason. It's wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like me? I think I took the last one, but you took the first two. So you want me to go first again?
Yes.
Okay. They're over under for wins. Now, the problem with what I'm doing is I'm searching this, and then every time I search it, it comes from a different website. So, I mean, but they're pretty similar. I kind of get annoyed with this one because I like when they're at half game marks, and this one isn't at a half game mark. This one's at 7, which is not a fun total to be at. So, yeah, but it's 7. That's their over under. This team. Honestly, I mean, we don't know where we're going since we're only at team number 4 for the offseason that we're talking about. But this team, I had a really hard time, like, going with games and going, like, one way or another. So I have a lot of toss-up games. And even then, I think I had, like, 8 toss-up games before. I tried to cut it down to, I think, 6 now. But even then, there's a lot of games that I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, these could go either way. And then again, it comes down to like how they play at the end of the game, and they're kind of questionable in the final minutes of games. This team, but maybe with some new coaching, we can see a turnaround in that late game situation scenario. So home games, they're interdivision games at home. They've got Panthers, Saints, Bucks. I'll give them the W against the Panthers. Say it's a toss up against the Saints because I really don't know how they're gonna look next season. I think they'll still be pretty good, but I just don't know. There could be more turnovers coming from that Saints offense, and that could make it harder to win games if they're not as careful with the ball. Then the Bucks, I think they'll lose to the Bucks. Eagles, I'll give them the win there. I think they can beat the Eagles at home, especially. Patriots, I do think they'll lose to the Patriots because I think the Patriots are going to be a lot better than a lot of people may be expecting next season, even though I think a lot of people are decently high on them. I don't know if they're high enough. I think they'll be a pretty solid team. I also think they'll beat the New York Jets and the Detroit Lions. I don't think either of those are too much of shockers. Washington, though, I actually think they'll lose to Washington. I think Washington will be a pretty competitive team next season as well. And then when they go to the Panthers, I'm going to say that one's a toss-up. Then kind of a little bit of a losing stretch here. Going to New Orleans, going to Tampa Bay, going to Buffalo. I think all of those will be losses. The Cowboys, toss-up. Dolphins, toss-up. Giants, W, but 49ers and Jaguars, also 2 toss-up games. So, I mean, I've got 6 games here that I've got listed as toss-ups, which is a lot, but split them down the middle. Say they go 3-3 in those. I've got them coming out at an 8-9 record, which I don't know. I don't know if that's terribly good, terribly bad, but I really do have to say that this team is so close in so many of these matchups that they could potentially lose all these games and go like 5-12, or they're right there enough that they also could win all these games, and then they go 11-6, or even maybe 12-5. Like they really could swing a lot. This is a team that I'm not too confident on, so kind of in the middle. 8-9 is my record prediction for them.
Okay, for me.
Sorry, I forgot to say. Over-under wise, 7 wins. I'm not feeling strongly either way. I mean, it slightly favors the over, but no, I wouldn't bet that.
Yeah. Their schedule for me, I have them home games. I have them losing to Tampa. I have them beating New Orleans and Carolina at home. I have them beating Philadelphia, losing to Washington, losing to New England, beating the Jets, and beating Detroit. So they've got 5 wins already.
Okay, that's pretty similar to what I said.
Their away games, I have them losing to Tampa, losing to New Orleans, losing to Carolina, losing to Buffalo, losing to Dallas, beating Miami, beating the Giants, losing to the 49ers, and then beating the Jags. So they finish 8-9.
Ah, very funny. Man, there was one game on there. Carolina. I know that you're not like me where you don't want to pick like you just go straight up wins or losses. But the Carolina away game, you're that strong. I mean, I realize you're not going in between. But if I actually had to pick, I'd say I'd favor Atlanta.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think both. See, for me,
I think it's close, but I think I'd favor
it would
Atlanta.
depend. It would depend on the time in the season that that matchup occurs. Because I think if it's earlier in the season, if that like they win the home game straight up, no matter when it is in the season. Maybe that's just me overvaluing home field advantage, but I think if their like week 1 game is at Carolina, and I think they could smoke them just going out there high-powered offense and no one knows how to stop them. I think they could probably rattle off 3 straight wins before teams realize like a way to shut them down. And then after that, it's just like, oh, they're mediocre, and we should have expected that. They just came out hot because they were all cylinders firing there right at the start. But yeah, the New Orleans and Carolina matchups for them, but the series for them, I think both of those series are a toss-up. It could go 2 L's, 2 dubs, or split it, so I just split it.
That's fair. That's fair to me. I understand that. And, I mean, we're pretty much on the same page with this team. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested to watch them. I really think that besides corner, I mean, maybe you could say some question marks at the offensive line, but I don't think any position's too weak on the offensive line. I really think that they could compete with anybody any week. It's just whether they do or not. I don't think there's any, like, they could beat Kansas City. They could realistically beat Tampa Bay. And, I mean, what's nice is they're in their division, so they really have 2 opportunities this year to show whether or not they can really compete with the big dogs. They've got the talent, just got to see if they can put anything together.
Yeah, in their games, I think it'll just come down to what team makes the most stops on defense. Because I don't have that much faith in Atlanta or Atlanta's defense to make stops if it comes down to it. But that offense could score every single possession.
Yeah.
With the guys that are on it. So if it's just back and forth the whole game, it's going to be who gets ball last that wins games for them.
Yeah, the end of the season, the final score to the Kansas City-Atlanta game is only 17-14.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like the NFL is so unpredictable.
That's why we're trying to predict it.
All right, all set?
Yeah, I think we can cut it here.